Welcome to the Fox Den, where the stories begin. Jordan Fox leads the way with news every day. RDS News brings the sound, all the facts you found. Tune in, take a listen, hear the truth spin round. The Fox Den, news with a bite.
Hello, RDS viewers. I'm Jordan Fox, and you're listening to the Fox Den, the newest show from RDS News. Make sure to check us out on all your platforms and to like and subscribe so we can hit #1. With me today in our debut episode, a man subject to so much Twitter and Reddit buzz, placing 5th in Survivor Season 2, and still dazzling viewers in Big Brother, Terrance Jackson. Now, you had a lot of different names or personas while on Survivor, so am I cool to call you Terrance, or should I go with Nado T or Dr. T?
Haha. I am usually back to Terrance now, but thanks for asking, Jordan. You can call me whatever you like, though. My students used to call me T-Man, in addition to all my Survivor nicknames.
So, before we talk about anything else, it's been a while since your last public appearance. What have you been up to since your time on the Solomon Islands?
Well, Jordan, I originally was going to return to my high school job after Survivor. But then when I found out my cousin Tyrone had been inflicted with what we now call crab curse, and I began to investigate. My investigations have taken me all over the globe, from California to Montana, Poland, and even Cambodia. It's been a wild ride since my time on Survivor.
Oh, wow, that is a lot of traveling. Now, didn't you see a vision of Tyrone while on Survivor? I definitely remember his grave. What was that about? And is it related?
We were really put through a lot on Survivor. Way worse than what I saw on the Big Brother house, which just looked like a giant party. On the show, I got severe heat stroke, and during this time, I saw a crab that looked just like Tyrone, and got a powerful feeling that his spirit was inside the crab. For a while, I wasn't sure if it was the heat stroke or something bigger. But then I learned later that Tyrone's head was replaced by a crab somehow. It indeed is all connected, but we've only scratched the surface. Tyrone and I have always had a strong connection, so I felt if I had been responsible or could help in some way, I needed to get to the bottom of it.
A strong connection indeed. There's speculation that I'm not even sure how to say this, but that you talked to Tyrone while he was in the Big Brother house? Through his mind?
Perhaps, it may be we do have a mind link, it may be we don't. But perhaps Tyrone just feels better thinking I'm there supporting him in some big decisions, and I'm sort of just a made-up voice in his head. Ever since we were kids and his single mother would ship the troublemaking Tyrone off to my family's home in Indiana, nearly every summer he has been something of a little brother to me. I've been sort of a mentor or a life coach for him through a lot of challenging situations, and the audience of Big Brother saw this closely, as strange as it appears at times. But I'll leave it up to the viewer and audience to decide what they want to believe with regards to the mind link. I doubt anything I'd say would change their minds on if they believe in it or not.
Uh-huh. Well, Tyrone had a lot of, I'll just say, interesting tendencies. I mean, when I got my cursed hat, Tyrone was the first person I went to. So if viewers want to believe in all that, definitely follow Tyrone's adventures. Now, how would you compare the way you played Survivor to the way he played Big Brother?
Well, the most obvious is that he was just really good at the competitions, and I was not. I was always sort of playing from behind in Survivor, after I was voted out early, and was just trying and failing to form any relationships I trusted. Tyrone made a lot more aggressive moves than I think I'd feel comfortable with, especially with breaking such a close alliance. His game took huge risks that with his competition wins proved to be a really strong, if chaotic, combination.
So you had, let's just say, an uneasy relationship with Indigo. How do you feel that Tyrone built a shrine dedicated to her?
This is a really good question, so deserves a long answer. When Indigo pressured Tyrone onto the show, I was initially very skeptical. But over time, I saw how the environment seemed to be good for Tyrone to gain personal growth. Tyrone has battled mental health issues his entire life, and he seemed to use a worship of Indigo as a way to, I guess, draw comfort for him to change and grow into something new and unknown for him, but inarguably improved. He eventually formed new friendships in the house and had better intentions with Jasmine. He helped Frank and Dutch in their pursuits. All this growth, while not always linear, seemed to culminate with him finally lifting the crab curse. After I saw the crab curse lifted, I reached out to Indigo to offer my apologies, as well as gratitude for what her show did for my cousin, who in my eyes appeared to be a much different man than the one I knew my entire life. From that conversation on, Indigo brought me into her circle, and we quickly formed a partnership further investigating. While I do not worship Indigo, I respect her deeply as a professional partner, friend, and ally.
There's been news that you were traveling with Indigo and a certain Mr. Jerry Calvoni. Could you talk about that relationship and what you've been doing?
So I don't think it is exactly a secret that Mr. Calvoni is Tyrone's biological father. As to what in particular we are doing, that unfortunately I'm not comfortable sharing broadly at this time.
Fair enough. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about today?
I can talk a bit more in depth on my observations of the game from the sideline, especially how it contrasts with Survivor. So for you, Jordan, you were a huge fan of Survivor and made it far in Big Brother. What are the major strategic differences you noticed, and is there anything you would have done differently?
Yes, I followed all the shows. I think I would have done really well with my strategy of befriending everyone in Survivor better than Big Brother. More room to cover. I think I was too focused on trying to get Tyrone and Dutch on the block that I became too narrow-minded. I actually feel that Tyrone and I could have been good allies, but it just never clicked. Losing my friends really started to get to me by the end there, too. I would have been more honest with Moira about Darius, too, but that's hindsight. I'd be upset if I was her, too.
It seems you had sniffed out the fellowship and were just as confident making big moves as Tyrone. You had a great endgame trio with Mel and Daisy, and had just one competition gone differently, things could have flipped. After you had left, the trio of Tyrone, Daisy, Mel won every single competition except for two. I don't think Tyrone was smart enough to realize how powerful strategically teaming with those two would be. He was pretty clearly just thinking with his, passions and heart. But he stumbled upon that group, which with you may have been even more powerful in game. Tyrone's downfall, which nearly had him exit earlier than third, was that your mom would always be against him no matter what, as well as Daisy, despite her showmance with Tyrone, was fiercely loyal to her original alliance, which included Mel and not Tyrone. It was almost like Tyrone switched to a new tribe late game, with mixed results. However, it did become clear that he was always on the outside of Moira Frank in his original alliance. So, even strategically, this seemed a solid risk for him to take, irregardless of his personal growing feelings for Daisy. But enough about Tyrone. You've seen the tapes by now? Whose game after the fact surprised you the most, Jordan? Who was being the most sneaky that you didn't realize in the house until you saw the show later?
Yeah, that's a great analysis, Terrance. It's hard for me to not think personally. And when I was in the jury house, I was really anti-Moira and didn't respect her game at all. I didn't realize how long she was playing me. I think the fact that Frank was wanting me out for a couple weeks stung too, especially since we were dancing and, yeah. I do think you're right. If I could have just won one of those competitions, then things would have been so different. I know the fellowship had a lot of advantages, but they seemed hesitant to use them. It is what it is. I'll ask you the same thing. In your Survivor show, who surprised you the most and what would you do differently?
I agree Moira was a very interesting player that was easier to see her thinking on show than in the game where she was very sneaky with who and how she revealed her thoughts and plans to. It reminded me a bit of Robert Bricks in Survivor. By the time he had left, I actually felt very close to him and considered him my closest friend. Later on the tapes, I saw how much him and others really felt about my diminishing physical and mental health, coinciding with whatever spiritual stuff was going on, and I guess I didn't realize how much people only tolerated me instead of really wanting me to get help or solve things. Kat and Izzy were easy for me to see, but not so much Robert, and even Gil at times. And I found out later that Madison liked me a lot more than I expected as well. Basically, a lot of things behind my back were different than what I saw to my face. I was basically like a zany Heath, with no truly close friends or alliances. So I guess what I would have done differently if I really wanted to stay in the game was bottled up my internal stuff going on. As challenging as that may have been, I haven't kept up on any of my Survivor relationships, It definitely seemed a lot more cutthroat than Big Brother. I feared early on the same patterns would emerge where Tyrone would be targeted, just for being different. But it seems the opposite happened, especially early with you, JD, Dutch, and Frank, especially being kind to him. It looks like everyone except for Heath in the final 8 seem to have at least a few people they want to stay in touch with. And I do wonder if I had a similar group of truly friendly people in Survivor, how things would have gone differently. Hell, even Tyrone and Dutch are quickly back to being friends, it looks like.
Right? I think with time I can get there. But we'll see. All right. Are you ready for one final question presented by Mountain Dew Zero? This comes from a fan on Reddit named TM666, and it asks, "Hey Terrance, you are such an expert on the strange and supernatural. What do you think happened to Gil Finley and JD Pierre? I sure hope nothing bad." And then it is followed by a bunch of laughing emojis. Terrance?
Well, TM666, I really shouldn't comment too much on the ongoing investigations. It seems different things happen to each, but just know Sarah Finley if you're listening, or Mr. and Mrs. Pierre, and all of the Big Brother house that knew JD. Just know that we are working tirelessly to find them. Myself, Indigo, the Fellowship, we will not stop until we are able to get to the bottom of it, and we have reason to believe that they are still out there.
This has been Terrance Jackson. It is such an honor to meet you and get to talk with you, sir. Good luck with your investigations as well. Do you have any parting words for our listeners?
Likewise, Jordan, it's been a great pleasure to finally meet you. Looking forward to following your career at RDS News. To the listeners, I have a parting poem in these difficult times. Code Red, the call, we heed it fast. No hope too small, no fight too vast. John and Gil will bring you home. Together, never alone.
And there you have it. Thank you for listening to episode 1 of the Fox Den podcast with Terrance Jackson. Stay tuned for more RDS news and updates. Good night, listeners.
This with the bite.